There are moments when an unexpected incident in the courtroom can change the trajectory of an attorney's career. On an otherwise ordinary morning at a Tampa, Florida courthouse, attorney Pam Bondi found this out the hard way. A lawsuit that initially seemed like a routine business dispute blossomed into a tense confrontation between personal freedom and judicial authority, all centered on a small gold cross pinned to her blazer. On that morning, the Tampa sky was clear, and early sunbeams lit up the downtown high-rises. Pam Bondi, known for her keen litigation skills, had arrived earlier than usual to prepare for a hearing. She carried a thick file case in one hand, while a tiny gold cross, a keepsake from her late grandmother, gleamed on her lapel, representing her faith and personal motivation. Courtroom number 3 was small but famously strict. Wooden benches showed their age, the sound of heels echoed, and the musty smell of paperwork added to the solemn atmosphere. Pam often enjoyed the subtle tension in the air and electrifying resolve to fight for justice. But that day, strange signs appeared. The court clerk, usually quite cordial, seemed visibly uncomfortable, shooting Pam nervous glances and then quickly looking away. One security officer acted awkwardly when their eyes met, as though wanting to say something but holding back. Small details like these suggested that this day would be anything but smooth. Seated at the defense table, Pam looked up at Judge Alan Prescott, perched at his elevated bench. He had a reputation for being brisk and liked to seize control of the courtroom from the start. His gaze lingered on Pam's neckline for a strangely long moment. She realized quickly it was about her cross. Indeed, in his opening statement, Judge Prescott banged the gavel and said curtly, "Ms. Bondi, I remind you that religious symbols have no place in this courtroom. Remove your cross, or you will be fined." A wave of murmurs rippled through the audience. Even the plaintiff and defendant exchanged surprised glances. No attorney had previously been publicly called out for something as simple as wearing a religious symbol in Prescott's courtroom. Briefly taken aback, Pam quickly regained her composure. Rising to address the judge, she spoke with firm politeness. "Your Honor, this cross is no different from a personal memento. It does not compromise the court's neutrality. I believe our Constitution protects the right to wear it." Prescott's gaze hardened. "In my courtroom, what I deem unacceptable remains unacceptable. If you refuse to remove it, you will be fined for violating this court's rules." And so, before anyone could have predicted it, an official fine was drawn up. A tiny gold cross lit the fuse for an escalation few foresaw. Yet for Pam, it was no longer just about wearing or not wearing the cross. It became a test of her determination to defend constitutional freedoms even if she had to confront a judge who might be abusing his power. She refused to back down. Following standard protocol, she promptly filed a formal objection. Invoking the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, she insisted no statute or legal precedent banned attorneys from wearing personal religious symbols. The hearing stretched on far longer than anyone expected. Judge Prescott, increasingly irritated, attempted multiple times to cut Pam off mid-speech, sometimes slamming his hand on the bench in frustration. But she persisted. She cited landmark cases such as Tinker v. Des Moines, affirming that students, and by extension, any citizen stepping onto government property, do not shed their constitutional rights to free speech or personal expression simply by entering public premises. West Virginia State Board of Education v. Barnett, prohibiting forced or prohibited expression of personal belief, unless a compelling public interest is clearly demonstrated. Pam's arguments captured everyone's attention. The atmosphere was as taut as a drawn bow, the court reporter typed away, both confused and intrigued by the remarkable scene unfolding. Eventually, realizing he had no legal basis to uphold his demand, Judge Prescott was forced to rescind the fine. A palpable sense of relief spread around the courtroom, with many observers in awe of Pam's determination. Yet it was clear from Prescott's expression, a flash of barely concealed anger, that his capitulation was not the end. Striking his gavel again with force, he announced, "I don't wish to waste more time on this matter. The court will set it aside for now." Pam, however, knew the storm was far from over. Less than 24 hours later, a notice from the courthouse arrived at Pam's office. In it, she was accused of causing disruption, disrespecting the court, and excessively challenging judicial authority. This kind of formal complaint, if taken seriously, could threaten an attorney's career. Still, Pam stood her ground. She recognized this was a fight she had to see through. Immediately contacting her network colleagues, professors, and free expression advocates, she relayed details of the injustice, determined not to let it remain hidden. The story reached local journalists, who did not spare any headlines. "An attorney fined for wearing a cross. Is this overreach from the bench?" It took only 48 hours before the case became widely known. Television stations, radio talk shows, online news outlets across Florida and the nation reported the story. Everyone waited for a climax, a famous, spirited lawyer locking horns with a judge known for his severity, who would prevail. Outside the courthouse, small gatherings formed. Some wore T-shirts with angelic figures. Others waved signs defending the First Amendment. A few religious freedom groups quietly came to show support. It resembled a mini protest upon the steps of the grand old courthouse. Meanwhile, legal experts debated the matter on television. Some defended the judge, suggesting that Prescott's instruction might have been an attempt to uphold neutrality and avoid distracting the jury. Others, however, pointed out the obvious double standard. The judge had previously allowed wedding rings and pink ribbons for breast cancer awareness. So why target Pam's cross? As curiosity intensified, the Florida Bar Association offered a brief statement. "We respect a court's authority to maintain order, but we take seriously any potential misconduct by any party that infringes on constitutionally protected rights." Although neutral on the surface, it was clear they were signaling that if the judge had overstepped, he could be investigated. Facing Prescott's complaint, Pam Bondi prepared her defense. She composed a detailed rebuttal, dozens of pages long, referencing court rulings, legal studies, and precedents. She called Lisa Reynolds a journalist specializing in legal investigations, who promised to give the controversy national coverage. "I want the public to realize," Pam said during an interview, "if a judge can punish a lawyer today, just for wearing a simple religious symbol, imagine what he might do to people with even less power, like indigent defendants or vulnerable witnesses." Her defiant words quickly appeared on front pages of local papers. Many people, regardless of religious affiliation, stood behind her because they saw it not merely as a religious issue, but a broader question of personal rights. Under mounting pressure from the media and the public, Judge Prescott gave a rare on-camera statement. It was a short clip in which he murmured, "I respect the disciplinary board's review. My actions were simply intended to uphold courtroom neutrality. I hope matters will soon be clarified." His demeanor, however, signaled discontent as he dodged the reporter's specific questions. The footage was widely broadcast, and only fueled speculation. Few people believed there was no ulterior motive behind his attempt to punish Pam. Weeks after the uproar, the Florida Judicial Review Board announced a formal investigation into Judge Prescott to determine whether he had breached judicial ethics by fining an attorney for reasons not sanctioned by law. Though the courtroom tension had died down, interest still ran high among the public. Closed-door hearings ensued, but leaked information revealed that Prescott's position was precarious. Several courthouse employees testified to observing how he treated Pam, confirming her cross had never disturbed the trial. It seemed more likely that personal bias lay behind his original stance. Faced with possible disciplinary action, Prescott eventually softened, reluctantly acknowledging he had shown some partiality in his initial fine. Though he never delivered a public apology, he withdrew his complaint against Pam before the situation could worsen further. To many, Pam Bondi's triumph was well earned. She not only defended her own rights, but sparked a wider debate about the limits of judicial power and personal liberty inside the courtroom. Some within the legal community suggested this case would serve as a warning, ensuring judges thought twice before restricting personal expression for attorneys, defendants, or witnesses. In the public eye, Pam became a symbol of resolve and bravery. She was invited to speak at civil rights conferences, interviewed on national television. Her office received daily emails recounting similar incidents where judges potentially abused their authority. Still, she faced some criticism from within the legal sphere. Detractors accused her of overreacting and making the judicial system look bad. She held firm that if the law permitted it, she would use the law to defend individual liberties, no matter whose feelings got hurt. The story of Pam Bondi and the Gold Cross is more than just a short-lived episode in a Tampa courtroom. It is a reminder that judicial power, while deserving respect, must operate within constitutional and ethical boundaries. Every citizen, including attorneys, has the right to fight back if they believe their rights are infringed upon without valid justification. In a society growing more complex, Pam's stand shows that sometimes a single determined act can trigger powerful waves of change. It encourages people to speak out rather than remain silent. Because if a judge could ban one small cross today, tomorrow it might be another cultural or religious symbol. And personal freedom would slowly erode if no one dared defend it. Although the case concluded, the names Judge Prescott and Pamela Bondi remain linked with a milestone moment defining the limits of authority and individual rights within the justice system. Minnie Reinhardt, a veteran legal reporter, summed up the trial this way: "Sometimes, a simple hearing becomes a profound battle of principles." Pam Bondi's story reveals that justice cannot be molded by personal whims, even those of a robed figure on the bench. Indeed, once lit, the flame for righteous freedom is hard to extinguish. And there stands Pam Bondi, gold cross gleaming, Embodying that flame, a steadfast attorney who won't back down before any abuse of power.